we will start estimation of blood sugar. So we'll start with the question, why do we need to measure the blood sugar? What is plasma glucose level? It's a important indicator of a body function and it is actively maintained in the normal range. If you have any abnormalities with regards to carbohydrate metabolism like diabetes mellitus, there are going to be problems with the glucose level. And that is why quantitative estimation of plasma or serum glucose, most of the time we do the plasma glucose, is necessary. Even also, most of the time diagnosis of diabetes mellitus as well as before surgery, we require the glucose level. We'll go into the theoretical part. What is difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes mellitus? This is just a table. Normally type 1 diabetes mellitus and type 2 diabetes mellitus. If we are going to classify it in a broader spectrum, what is diabetes? It is juvenile as well as diabetes mellitus. In diabetes mellitus, you have two types, type 1 and type 2. Now, depending on the condition, underlying condition, you have two different types, type 1, type 2, and there are different criteria like age of onset, plasma insulin. You can see it is different. Plasma insulin, pathogenesis, what are the acute complications are there, as well as what will be the response, which type of therapy this particular type of diabetes mellitus will be responding to. So, what can be the complications of diabetes mellitus? Acute diabetic ketoacidosis. Ketoacidosis is basically a metabolic acidosis because of too much amount of sugar. While chronic complications are atherosclerosis, neuropathy, retinopathy, nephropathy, and foot ulcer as well as gangrene. So, diagnosis of diabetes mellitus is an important part of our day-to-day medical practice, and for that we can utilize multiple different diagnostic criteria. We can utilize blood glucose level, oral glucose tolerance test, not that much utilized these days, but still it is very much relevant, and plus a good prognostic marker, glycated hemoglobin. So we are going to talk about all these three. So estimation of blood glucose. When you talk about blood sugars, it includes all hexoses. That includes mainly glucose, but all other hexoses as well. If you are going to only estimate blood sugar instead of glucose, other hexoses may interfere and you will get a little bit higher value compared to the normal glucose. And this is possible most of the time in the non-enzymatic method. So it may give you little bit higher values. Out of this, you can utilize some specific methods also, like enzymatic methods, glucose oxidase. It measures only glucose, no other hexoses. So what are the non-enzymatic methods for estimation of blood glucose, also known as reduction methods? These are Follin-Wu method, King-Asatour method, Nelson-Somogyi method, Hoffman method, Neo-Kuprin method, or ortho-fluoridination. These methods are right now little bit less utilized or utilized where you do not have enzymatic methods available. Also, they are cumbersome, so they have been depreciated over the time. And currently now we are utilizing the enzymatic methods. GOD-POD method, hexokinase method, as well as glucose dehydrogenase method. And right now, GOD-POD, glucose oxidase peroxidase method, is considered as a gold standard method for estimation of blood glucose. Before we go into the practical itself, we need to discuss about the sample collection. Most of the time, we utilize the venous sample, and that can be either random, fasting, as well as postprandial. Random means you take any time, irrespective of the condition of the patient. Fasting means overnight there is no eating, only water, and you just check the glucose level in the morning. While postprandial is after eating. That can be after 1 hour, half hour, 1.5 hour, or 2 hours, or more than that, just to get the idea. Before we go to the method, you have to have some precautions. Make sure there is no hemolysis in the sample, means there is no crushing of the RBCs and internal components are not spilled into the serum. Normally what happens is whatever the glucose is present into the plasma, it can be reduced by bacterial contamination or glycolysis. Even if you are after you are drawing the sample, glycolysis goes on. So it is advisable that you separate the plasma from the blood cells as soon as you collect the sample. So it is necessary that you centrifuge them immediately. Some of the procedure also use sodium azide as well as phenol. So make sure when you are performing practical, you do not swallow or you avoid the contact with the skin and other components. And most of the time, do not mouth pipette if you have to estimate the CSF sugar. Now, talking about the anticoagulants, like we talked, glycolysis. Because of the glycolysis, if you are going to keep the glucose on a regular condition, per hour, almost 7 to 8 milligram percent glucose will be consumed from the RBCs. So, what we utilize to block the glycolysis is sodium fluoride. It inhibits the enolase enzyme and thus considered as an antiglycolytic component. And what we utilize is combination of sodium fluoride and potassium oxalate. Potassium oxalate is our anticoagulant, while sodium fluoride is our antiglycolytic agent. We can utilize other component as well for anticoagulant, but this is a standard condition. What we utilize is sodium fluoride and potassium oxalate in 1 by 3 ratio. So now coming to the method itself. Aim is estimation of the blood glucose in the given sample. Methodology is considered as a Trindle's method. So what is the principle? The glucose oxidase enzyme, GOD, it oxidizes beta D glucose. This is the most prominent glucose. It is present in the sample and forms the gluconic acid and hydrogen peroxide. This peroxidase enzyme, another component, will act on hydrogen peroxide and it forms water and nascent oxygen. 4-amino antipyrine present into the solution works as an oxygen acceptor and it's a chromogenic. So once it accepts the oxygen, it will change the color. So it reacts with the nascent oxygen liberated and creates a pink colored chromogen quinoine dye. Now, if you just see, the amount of glucose will generate same amount of hydrogen peroxide, will generate same amount of water or nascent oxygen. So the intensity of color that is going to be produced by chromogen quinoine dye will be directly proportional to the whatever the glucose is present in the blood, and we can measure this intensity at 520 nanometer and we can compare it with the standard. So this is just a reaction. Glucose in the presence of GOD, gluconic acid and H2O2, hydrogen peroxide. Now this H2O2 is liberated into H2O plus nascent oxygen. Now this nascent oxygen reacts with 4-amino antipyrine in presence of phenol and you generate the chromogen. These are basically stabilizers. This is how you generate the green color chromogen and you measure this chromogen. So what we are going to utilize is a single reagent which contains glucose oxidase, peroxidase, 4-amino antipyrine and phenol and glucose standard, which normally is around 100 milligram per deciliter or 10 microgram per 10 microliter. So now procedure, observation, calculation, result and interpretation. That's part we are going to discuss. So for that part, we are going to take three test tubes, mark them as blank, standard and taste, and we are going to follow the procedure as the table. We take 10 microliter distilled water. In standard, we take the glucose standard 10 microliter, and in plasma, we take 10 microliter taste. Glucose reagent will be 1 ml for each and every one. Mix thoroughly and keep it at 37 degree or room temperature. 37 degree, you keep it for around 15 minutes, or room temperature. If it is lower, you can keep it for a little bit longer period. And once you are going to complete the time period, read it at 520 nanometer. Now let's see with the procedure video. I hope you can see the procedure video. So this is standard test tube. This is your test tube for taste. This is our glucose solution, GOD POD. Distilled water, glucose standard, and taste sample that has been given to you. You can utilize direct plasma as well as for you guys, we will be providing you the ready-made taste sample. Now this is 1 ml micropipette and this is 10 microliter micropipette. Now we will take 1 ml GOD-POD solution into each test tube. That includes blank, standard and taste. Make sure you do not keep the GOD-POD solution open. Now we'll start with the 10 microliter sample. First, for a blank, we are going to utilize the distilled water. Make sure you don't use the same tips for all the samples. Always use separate tips for each and every different collection. While putting the 10 microliter, make sure it touches your sample slightly. Don't just dip inside the test tube. Whole pipette should not be dipped, otherwise it will contaminate. Okay, so this we are completing. Now keep it for around 15 to 20 minutes depending on the room temperature. Now coming to the estimation part. This is the colorimeter and already 15 to 20 minutes has been passed. So now you can see the color has been developed a little bit. Now you have to keep this cuvette separate. Clean the cuvette. Now first take black. Put it inside the colorimeter and set the value to 0. So we are removing the blank out of it. This is the blank value. It is right now 0. Now we are going to take the standard. Put it into the colorimeter and not the value of optical density. Now last step, taste. Measure the taste value as well. Note down the optical density of the taste as well. So once noted down, we can put it into our observation table. This is the observation table where we are going to put the optical density value that we have got, and then we can do the calculation, that is optical density of taste minus optical density of blank. We have already set it to 0, so we can directly write down test and upon standard into concentration of standard into effective blood volume and into 100. So what you are getting is whatever the optical density upon standard density into 100, and that will lead to the result that will be in the milligram per deciliter. For normal values, fasting blood sugar is around 70 to 100, or normal less than 110. Postprandial is 110 to 140, or random it is normally less than 140. So based on this, there are some interpretations that can be drawn. Plasma glucose is around 20 to 30% higher as compared to the whole blood glucose due to lower water content in the cell compared to the plasma. So you have to keep in mind that actual value of glucose will be little bit lower inside the cell than in the plasma, and depending on the disease condition, there may be changes into the plasma glucose level. If you have too much amount of blood glucose level, that is called as hyperglycemia, and if you have less blood glucose, that is called as hypoglycemia. So where do you see hyperglycemia? Diabetes mellitus, hyperthyroidism, hyperpituitarism, pancreatitis, Cushing syndrome, and pheochromocytoma. And hypoglycemia, that is less than 50 milligram percent or 50 milligram per deciliter, where you have too much amount of insulin, hypothyroidism, Addison's disease, hepatic disease, too much amount of exercise, or some kind of glycogen storage disorder. Then there is some important terminology we have to understand. What is renal threshold? Means beyond this value in plasma, kidneys will not be able to absorb it back, and that will lead to glucose being appear into the urine. You have to make sure that this is your plasma value, not a urine value. This is the plasma value, and beyond this value, kidney may not be able to absorb it back into the blood, and whatever the above amount is getting appear into the urine, that is called as glycosuria. Now, because glucose is too much hydrophilic, water is also going to be carried along, and that condition is called as a polyuria. And because too much amount of fluid is lost, that increases osmolality, and that causes the increased thirst, that is considered as a polydipsia. So now coming to the glucose tolerance test. All the components what we have done in the estimation of blood glucose are done here also, but we plot a chart at different times. So what is glucose tolerance test? It is done to evaluate the degree of tolerance of an individual towards the glucose load. If we provide them a pure glucose, how much that person is going to react, that is conditioned under standard condition. That part we evaluate in the glucose tolerance test. If you are going to take a normal individual, there is going to be a characteristic time related blood glucose response, means how much at particular time, how much amount of blood glucose should be, and that basically tells us the body's ability to absorb the glucose and metabolize it. If you have any particular disease condition, and there are chances this particular response will be altered, that we can decide. So what are the indications? First, if you have a symptoms that suggest the DM, but our fasting blood sugar is already lower, so we do not know, it is confirmed that it is diabetes mellitus. There is a excessive weight gain during the pregnancy, or already pregnant woman with having a bad obstetric history, or to rule out the benign renal glycosuria. What are the contraindications? We should not do this glucose tolerance test in confirmed cases of diabetes mellitus. Even for follow-up, it is not important. So what are the prerequisites? Patient should be normal, having a normal diet, at least 150 gram of carbohydrate for almost 3 to 4 days beforehand. There should be an overnight fast for around 10 to 12 hours. Means previous day patient should be eating at 8 or 9 p.m. and then he should not be eating anything except for water. Then patient should be relaxed and should not be involved in any kind of physical activity beforehand. Also, smoking and any other drugs are not allowed during the test. What is the procedure? Overnight fast, fasting blood glucose and urine samples are collected. Now then we provide them with 75 gram glucose in 300 ml of water, and then it is provided. Then blood and urine samples are collected every half an hour, then up to 2.5 hours. And whatever the glucose level we find, we quantitatively measure them through Benedict test or any other test. And then we plot the values by time. So if you are going to see, this is different types of person having a different types of GTT response, and this is the time. Normal person will have 90, 1.5, 1, 1.5, 1 and 1.5, 2 and 2 and 2.5. This is the normal response. Diabetic patient will have an exaggerated. There may be lag curve, renal glycosuria, or there may be flat curve. If you are going to plot it into the graph, this is the time duration and this is the value. So black is a normal person, blue is there is a impaired glucose tolerance. Means person is not diabetic, but there are chances that he may go into the diabetic. This is elementary glycosuria, and what you have in red line is diabetes, and this is our renal threshold. For diabetic person, if it reaches beyond that, means in urine you will see only these two, green and red line, as a glucose appearance in the urine. So lag curve basically, except at the peak level, it is normal. Renal glycosuria is decreased when you see there is a decreased renal threshold, maybe reabsorption defect. That renal glycosuria or threshold will be lowered while it increases in nephrosclerosis. While you see flat curve in hypoactivity of the endocrine glands. So this is the criteria for diagnosis of diabetes mellitus. Your fasting sugar should be lower than 110. Impaired condition is called as 110 to 126, while diabetic person will have fasting glucose beyond 125 or 126 milligram per dl. And postprandial condition is likewise less than 140 milligram per dl, 140 to 199 milligram per dl, and more than 200 milligram per dl. So now coming to the last part of this demonstration, what is glycated hemoglobin? When hemoglobin and sugar are combined, what you have is glycated hemoglobin. What happens is that hemoglobin molecules, here sugars are attached to the amino group of B chain through the non-enzymatic process, that is called as glycation. Actually, it depends on the level of sugar. The more the sugar is there, more the attachment will, glycation process will be there. So there are different types of glycated hemoglobins. HbA1, where fructose 1,6-bisphosphate is attached. HbA1, glucose 6-phosphate is attached to the hemoglobin. HbA1b, pyruvate is attached to the hemoglobin, while HbA1c, only glucose molecules are directly attached. So these particular above mentioned types of HbA1 are already present, but we can only specifically detect HbA1c, that is glycated hemoglobin, for our prognostic purposes. It helps in monitoring the blood glucose value. It helps in finding the mean glucose level for almost previous 12 weeks or 2-3 months. We can do it in a known patient of diabetes once in a 2-3 months. Normally it is less than 5.5%, but it can be above 7.5 in diabetics, and in impaired persons it is between 5.5 to 7.5. We can utilize HPLC as well as nephrometry for this estimation. I think this completes our discussion regarding the estimation of blood glucose.